In this video, I'm going to read aloud this article from the right. The first thing you might want to do is go ahead and copy and paste the link right here in your current event report. And then over here where it says notes, your goal is to take at least 3 bullet points, if not more, worth of notes. And your notes should really focus on the pros and cons of the vaccines or whether or not the vaccine is being distributed fairly. So starting right up here at the top of the title, vaccination passports may open society, but inequity looms. So just based off the title, we can see that the right is really going to focus on the inequity or how these shots may not be fair. And they might focus a little bit more about the cons or the bad side about these shots. So maybe a little bit more negative perception about these shots. And this is based in Tel Aviv, Israel, which would be in the Middle East. Violet light bathed the club stage as 300 people, masked and socially distanced, erupted in a gentle applause. For the first time since the pandemic began, Israeli musician Aviv Geffen stepped to his electric piano and began to play for an audience seated right in front of him. A miracle is happening here tonight, Geffen told the crowd. Still, the reanimating experience Monday night above a shopping mall north of Tel Aviv night was not accessible to everyone. Only people displaying a green passport that proved they had been vaccinated or had recovered from COVID-19 could get in. So we can see what they mean by inequity. It seems like only those who've been vaccinated could go and do these normal things like go to a concert. So for our notes, we can go ahead and say, if you don't get the vaccine, you could face discrimination, like, for example, not being allowed into a concert. All right, back to our article, starting with the highly controlled. A highly controlled concert offered a glimpse of a future that many are longing for after months of COVID-19 restrictions. Governments say getting vaccinated and having proper documentation will smooth the way to travel, entertainment, and other social gatherings in a post-pandemic world. But it also raises the prospect of further dividing the world along the lines of wealth and vaccine access, creating ethical and logistical issues that have alarmed decision makers around the world. Other governments are watching Israel churn through the world's fastest vaccination program and grapple with the ethics of using the shots as diplomatic currency and power. Inside Israel, green passports or badges obtained through an app is the coin of the realm. The country recently reached agreements with Greece and Cyprus to recognize each other's green badges, and more such tourism-boosting accords are expected. Anyone unwilling or unable to get the jabs that confer immunity will be left behind, said Health Minister Yuli Edelstein. It's really the only way forward at the moment, Geffen said in an interview with the Associated Press. The checks at the club's doors, which admitted only those who could prove they are fully vaccinated, allowed at least a semblance of normality. People can't live their lives in the new world without them, he said. We must take the vaccines. We must. Vaccine is not available to everyone in the world, whether due to supply or cost, and some people don't want it for religious or other reasons. In Israel, a country of 9.3 million people, only about half the adult population has received the required 2 doses. So they give some facts right here and bring up some points that not everyone is able to get the vaccine because there's just not enough of it, or it is too expensive for some people, or some people don't want it because it goes against their religion or other reasons. So you can go ahead and add that right here, how it might not be fair to those who can't afford it, don't have access to the shot, or have a religion that prevents them from getting the shot. Back to our article, starting with there's new pressure. There is new pressure from the government to encourage vaccinations. Israeli lawmakers on Wednesday passed a law allowing the health ministry to disclose information on people who have yet to be vaccinated. Under the policy, names can be released to the ministers of education, labor, social affairs, and social services, as well as local governments, with the purpose of allowing these bodies to encourage people to get vaccinated. So this, the way it's worded, it really seems like it's infringing on people's privacy where their medical records are being released, which is a huge deal. Add that to your notes, invasion of privacy by releasing those medical records. The government is appealing to the emotional longing for the company of others in Israel's storied outdoor markets, at concerts like Geffen's and elsewhere. With the Green Pass, doors just open for you. You could go out to restaurants, work out at the gym, and see a show. Read an announcement on February 21st, the day much of the economy reopened after a 6-week shutdown. Then it raised a question at the center of the global quest to conquer the pandemic that has hobbled economies and killed nearly 2.5 million people. How to get the pass. Go and get vaccinated right now. It's that simple in Israel, which has enough vaccine to inoculate everyone over 16, although the government has been criticized for sharing only tiny quantities with Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. So you can go ahead and highlight this in your notes. In Israel, the shot is not being given fairly, according to this article. It says that Palestinians are not getting the same amount of shots. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this week he intends to send excess vaccine to some of the country's allies. Israel's Attorney General said Thursday night the plan has been frozen while he reviews the legalities. Most countries don't have enough vaccine, highlighting the fraught ethical landscape of who can get it and how to lift the burden of COVID-19. The core human rights principle is equity and non-discrimination, said Lawrence Gostein, a Georgetown University professor and director of the World Health Organization, Collaborating Center on National and Global Health Law. That is one heck of an organization name. Hoofda. There's a huge moral crisis in equity globally because in high-income countries like Israel or the United States or the EU countries, we're likely to get herd immunity by the end of this year, he said. But for many low-income countries, most people won't be vaccinated for many years. Do we really want to give priority to people who already have so many privileges? So right here, they're kind of highlighting the fact that some countries are a little bit more wealthier, and so they're going to get more vaccines. And that might not be fair to those who don't have as much money or wealth. And add that into your notes. Moving on in our article, it's a question dogging. It's a question dogging the international community as wealthier countries begin to gain traction against the coronavirus and some of its variants. Last April, the initiative known as COVAX was formed by the WHO, World Health Organization, not the old rock band, with the initial goal of getting vaccines to poor countries at roughly the same time shots were being rolled out in rich countries. It has missed that target by 80% of the 210 million doses administered worldwide have been given in only 10 countries. WHO Director General Tedros said this week. Ghana on Wednesday became the first of 92 countries to get vaccines for free through the initiative. COVAX announced that about 600,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine arrived in the African nation. That's a fraction of the 2 billion shots the WHO aims to deliver this year. As those countries begin vaccinations, wealthier nations are starting to talk about green passport logistics, security, privacy, and policy. The British government said it's studying the possibility of issuing some kind of COVID status certification that could be used by employers and organizers of large events as it prepares to ease lockdown restrictions this year. My article just went haywire here. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the policy could cause problems. We can't be discriminatory against people who, for whatever reason, can't have the vaccine, he said. Many countries around Europe are scrambling to develop their own vaccine certification systems to help revive summer travel, generating a risk that different systems won't work properly across the continent's borders. I think there is a huge potential for not working well together, said Andrew Budd, CEO of facial biometrics company iProve, which is testing its digital vaccination passport technology within the UK's National Health Service. But the technical knots around vaccine passports may be easier ones to solve, he said. The bigger challenges are principally ethical, social, political, and legal. How to balance the fundamental rights of citizens with the benefits to society. So here in the middle, towards the end, They kind of focus on the fact that if they do get their own systems, these countries in Europe and if the United States gets their own certification system, that it might not work interchangeably. So, especially in Europe where they have these super duper small countries, they wouldn't be able to travel back and forth through these different countries because the certification system might be different. You could go ahead and add that in your current events report.